Hi, I'm Khleif. Each and every week, I record an interview with a thought leader that I know you're going to get a ton of value from. Now, here on YouTube are the video versions of my podcast, Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing. Now, to make sure you get the latest information, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. Let's get started. Welcome to another edition of How to Build Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing. I'm Khleif, and I am absolutely thrilled you're here. And I know you're going to get tremendous value from the rock star that we're interviewing today, who happens to be the CEO of Rockstar Capital. His name is Robert Martinez, and his company, he's the CEO, has 3,699 units in 21 communities. And they've got a lot of accolades regarding how they manage, and we're going to talk about that and some of the strategies he's used. But without further ado, welcome, my friend.
Hey, Rod, thanks so much for the opportunity to be on your show. It is an absolute honor, and congratulations to you all your success.
Oh, thank you, buddy. And likewise for sure. So, let's start out like I start out most interviews, just telling people how you got, because you weren't born with 3,699 doors.
No.
Talk about a little bit about your life cycle in this business, how you got started and how you got to the success that you enjoy right now.
Like a lot of people, you're taught to go to school, get good grades, and you go off to college and you major in what you think you're supposed to major. You become an attorney, a doctor, an engineer, you do something like that. And you think that's going to be what you're supposed to do for the next, 40, 50 years of the best years of your life. And then hopefully you're going to save enough and retire and try not to die before your money runs out, and that's such a failed formula. But what happens, and what the big lesson in my life that I've learned is, necessity is the mother of invention. And when something gets painful enough, you make a change, so just like I explained, I went to a good school, I have an engineering degree, and I went in and became a sales guy, which I think later on is a great attribute when you get into real estate investing, right? Because it's marketing. It's like, what is your personality? I wasn't one of those engineer guys that had the 3.8 to 4.0. I would have been closer to the 3.0 to 2.9. Right. And so when my company hired me, they wanted, sales engineers. They wanted guys that knew how to speak a little bit of the language, but also use some of that personality. And so what happened was that we went through a few transitions in the company I was working for. And as you know, they always want to cut costs to justify the purchase that they just made, just like we try to do on value add properties, right? We want to cut expenses. And quickest way to cut expenses is to go and adjust and monkey with everybody's commission plan, right? And who makes the most money? The sales guys. Right. And once you realize, and you've been in the business long enough, salesmen are allowed to make X amount. But the CEO, the CPA, whoever they're up here, and they don't want you getting too close to them. And so they like to monkey your commission, and change your plans. And after a few times of that happening, I recognized that I didn't have control of my financial future. Which my employer did, which means he had control when I was going to retire. Along that path, he had control of the kind of school my kids were going to go to, whether I wanted to send them to private or public, the kind of house I was going to have, the lifestyle, my vacations. And again, once you go through that and you come to this epiphany, this realization that you don't have control, you start to do something. The pain becomes heavy enough that you want to make a change. I was very fortunate. I started to listen to the radio, started to, watch programs and try to find a different way of moving forward. And I discovered a local real estate show in Houston, Texas, called Lifestyles Unlimited. I'm a big supporter of joining a real estate club, an education club in your town, nearby, where you can get with other like-minded investors. And I did that. And in 2007, I joined that club. By the end of the first year, I had, watched the videos. I had gone on the road trips. I had networked, and we bought our very first property. And I had a business partner. He and I started a company. And for the next 3 years, we did that together. And I became the operating arm. I was the COO of that company. And
can I stop you for 1 second? Stop you for 1 second, because you've dropped a lot of bombs that I'd really like to circle back on and just add some emphasis to.
Sure.
And I want to continue your story. I actually want to circle back to that first deal as well, if you don't mind. But your transition from engineering to sales is frankly very unusual, because most analytical people are not salespeople. So,
yeah.
That speaks to your success for sure, because, what I see in this business, a lot of partnerships between an engineering mind and a sales mind. And those are fantastic partnerships, which you're blessed to have both qualities, which is,
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Not normal. Yeah. Now, you talked about the lack of control in a job. And yeah, I mean, if you're not if you're not building your own dream, you're helping someone else build theirs. And I want to actually also hammer home one thing you said, and that is you have to have pain to change. You have to create leverage on yourself. And so, one of the things that Tony Robbins does, I'm a big fan of his, at his events, is he has you do that. He calls it the Dickens process. It's this process where you stack pain on not changing. It's a very powerful process, but you did it yourself. And a lot of people, they reach a point of saturation. Enough is freaking enough. It's contempt even. It's disgust with where they are to take action. And so guys, if you, and I can hear the thunder in the background. You told me you've got a lot of storming going on. So guys, that's not a sound issue. That's thunder going on in his backyard right now.
Yeah, it's raining bad here. We got a tropical storm, crazy weather.
Yeah. So you partnered up with somebody, and tell us about your first deal. How many doors? Houston is your market, right?
Right. So I've had two lives. I had that first life when I had a business partner, and then I had the second life that I had with my own company, right? So my very, very first deal was a property that I purchased in 2010. It was just short of the recession.
Good timing.
Yeah, timing was great. But, there's a lot of risk involved, right? Because nobody knew it was the end of the world. It was the greatest depression, the greatest, financial meltdowns of depression, all that stuff. And so it took a little risk. I think in real estate investing, you have to have a little bit of a riverboat gambler mentality. You can't, it's not going to be for the engineers, that only see black and white. I think you're going to have a little bit of faith and some confidence in yourself. And sometimes when you have to put it all on the line. And so that first deal was it was 118 doors. It was $2.9 million, which is right around $24,500 a unit, if I recall.
Wow.
Which is super cheap, right? But it's post-recession. And you can't get a Fannie loan, right? It's going to be bridge loan, recourse loan, right? Which means I had to sign on that line. And I tell you what, nothing motivates you than when you have to sign on the line and you have your money, your children's money, everything's riding on the success of that business.
Right.
And you work really hard. And so I was able to purchase it. We were at 80% when I took it over. Within 30 days, we were at 90%. Within 60 days, we were at 100%. They literally didn't know what to do. And so they kept make-rating the units, but they had no one to lease them to. And all we did was when we first took over, look, we have all this vacancy loss. Let's reduce the price. And then as we lease a unit, raise it up $20. As we lease a few more units, raise it up $20 and just get rid of that vacancy loss, but also don't give away the farm. Test the market, right? And before long, we were well beyond our debt numbers that we needed to be. And within a year and a half, we were ready to refinance it. I got it out of temporary debt, and I got into my first Fannie debt. And then we did that again a few more times. And then, so we refinanced that deal twice. Today, that deal is worth $100,000 a door. We've refinanced it twice. And we've made somewhere in the range of around 370% cash back to the investors, not including the value that's still in that deal. So we're actually talking about maybe doing another refinance out next year.
Sure. I mean, it was hard to miss. It was hard to miss. I mean, listen, kudos to you. But the pricing back then was so fantastic. But you're right. You had to suck it up because blood was running in the streets. If you read the newspapers, that's how they coined it. Now I know you've raised in excess of $91 million for your deals. You do syndications. You've got a lot of deals going. But before we started recording, you started talking about the influence that you've been getting from some of the big thought leaders, not thought leaders, but people that everyone knows, Gary Vee and Grant Cardone. Can you speak to some of the things that you've learned about enhancing your business through those two gentlemen?
Right. So I feel I'm a good operator, and I'm a good natural operator. I think my sales background helps me a lot. I've got a little bit of marketing, but I didn't know how innovative that I was. I guess I got started watching out Grant videos, but then I really got enamored with Gary. Gary is just, as you know, is just a whole nother animal. Just like the guy's literally moving all the time. But one time he said something that really caught my attention. He said, "You have to try to put yourself out of business, or somebody else puts you out of business." And that made so much sense to me. And it's like become like this internal theme and motto inside me. And so with that, it stems the innovative juices. And I learned a lot with him. I went to his 4D event, which is, for small business people. I've had a chance to visit with him in person for 30 minutes. I brought my whole team up to New York. But what I learned was storytelling and through the use of video. You've got to use video to storytell. And if you just give me a minute to elaborate on that, sure. With that came reputation management. Nobody shows up on a Saturday morning anymore to rent an apartment with a rent.com book or apartment guide book. They find you during the week. And they're going to go through not just 10, but like 100 different places, right? And they're going to start first with reviews, which makes sense. You don't go to Best Buy and know what TV to buy. You ask the sales guy, hey, which one is the one everybody buying? When you go to Amazon, do you know which one to buy? No, you read the reviews and you go to pricing, right? But it all starts with the reviews. Well, what do those reviews say? I remember back when I got started, I didn't pay attention to that stuff. I was like, no, I was almost like an ostrich in the sand. I ignored the negative reviews. I acted as if they weren't there. But as the use of smartphones and the internet came more and more widespread, people are really voicing their opinions, and you have to control the message. And so I thought really quickly, well, why are they upset, right? And it makes you think, like, is everybody upset? No, it's not everybody. It's just that one person. And why are they upset? Probably because they're not paying their rent, and now you're forcing them to pay their rent, or they're bringing up issues in the past. But it all has to do with finances, right? But what are all the good reviews? Every time somebody rents an apartment with you and they lease and they move in, aren't they happy? Right. Every time somebody renews, aren't they happy? So why aren't you asking for that review? So we're trying to learn to drown out the noise, right? But through the use of drowning out the noise and video storytelling, we're able to tell what it's like to live at our properties through the use of video. And so come Saturday, when they show up on Saturday, the deal's done. They're ready to lease. All they got to do is make sure that it matches up to what they see, to what they saw online. So that's what I learned from Gary. Gary was great.
Yeah, that's huge. Let me put an exclamation mark on that. And those of you that are operators right now, I know there's a lot of listening that haven't done a deal yet, but those of you that are operators right now that have a property, you've got to be checking what's happening online as far as reviews and frankly, proactively looking on a regular basis or having alerts in place so that when you get a negative one, not only do you try to get positive ones to drown those out, but you actually respond. Okay. And you say, well, this is what we believe happened, happy to help you, please contact our office because we had not heard from you or whatever, the story is, whatever the situation is. But the key is to be proactive. Wouldn't you agree? And
absolutely. Yeah. And even at the scale that we're at, we got, just under 3,700 doors. I've got a company that we use that monitors all of our reviews. And I get a daily summary. I don't care if it's Google, Facebook, Instagram, wherever it's on. If there's a review platform, we get that. And me and the rest of my corporate team, which is at 10 other people, we each get this email every day. So everybody knows that I see that review and I read them. I skip the 5 stars and I look for the 3 stars. I look for the 2 stars, the 1 stars, and I send it back to everybody. I say, hey, what is this about? What's going on? And now they're trying to contact me like on LinkedIn or something like that. Right? I'm like, whoa, now you got a LinkedIn guy here. Like that's even more, pressure. Who is this person, right? It's not your typical Google review or apartmentratings.com review or Facebook. It's somebody with a higher, so we even pay even more attention. But The thing is that you just want to pay attention, right? I think we all want to do a good job, but education and awareness is everything. And if you know that there's a problem, you'll try to fix it.
Yeah. Like we've bought 1,000 doors in the last short while, like 6 months. And we've had to rebrand a couple of them and change the name because, that hadn't been paid attention to and it was all negative. Okay.
Yeah.
And you can't start from completely underwater. So at that point you change the name and you rebrand, but very sound advice. Now talk about the storytelling a little bit, give us an example of what you might do in a video and with some little micro down a little bit.
Well, for sure, you want to show what it's like to live at your property. So separate yourself from the noise. Anything you do is going to separate yourself. So show resident testimonials, show the amenities, do a walkthrough, do a drone. I mean, it's like we have 3D floor plans. We have interactive video. We have what we call the VLC. It's a virtual leasing center. They can literally put on goggles and they can immerse themselves what it's like. You can do it from home. Or you can do it there in person. So when the weather's like this and they make the trek out to your property, we can still tour the property because they can put on those goggles or they can see it. So you want to make it as easy to understand what it's like because many people now are moving from across the country and they sometimes don't even have the chance to see your property. But if you don't have a way for them to see who you are, then they're going to skip you. right? So this goes back to what Gary said. Find a way to put yourself out of business before someone else does. That's what happened. We want to make sure that people can get to us 24 hours a day. We have a 24/7 customer line. So if you wanted to lease an apartment with us at 3 a.m. because you work the late shift, you'll call and you'll get a trained leasing professional. If you call us during the day, somebody is going to answer that call within 3 calls, whether it's our leasing team or a customer hotline team.
3 rings,
Three rings, excuse me. 3 rings. So if my team is busy talking to you and we don't want to interrupt the conversation, the momentum, that phone's going to get picked up. Again, 24/7 by a trained leasing professional. You want to make it easy to lease with you. And video storytelling is a wonderful way.
How do you, like so many people will do an inquiry online where they won't call, they'll fill out a form or they'll do something. What is your, because this is one of the questions we ask property management companies, what their response time is. And it's one of the stock questions that we ask. I'm just curious, by the way, do you use third-party property manager or do you manage in-house?
We do everything in-house. We use a third-party property management software, right? Like a RealPage or those kind of groups like that. But we do everything in-house. We do it in-house. All of our properties.
So what is your standard operating procedure for when you get an internet need and the response time to get back? Because if they send something to you, they're instantly going to the next one unless they hear back.
Yes. The deadline is 24 hours, right? And I get, it's funny, I got an email on this yesterday from my marketing director saying, hey, these properties are above the 30% number, meaning that 30% of their leads aren't getting answered within 24 hours. We pay a lot of money for those leads. We do a lot of research, whether it's through a third party or our own generation, right? Through our websites, through the video promotion, through our sponsored ads on Facebook. That lead's expensive. So we make sure that our teams, and there's somebody watching, you got to pay, have a set of eyes, 40 hours that are paying attention to those leads. If it's important enough to you'll take it out of your pocket to make sure somebody's watching it. But
I would even argue that it should be faster than that, frankly.
Sure.
But let me ask you this, because I know you've got, you were involved in a study of over 100,000 communities nationally, and 4 of your communities ranked in the top 1% out of 100,000 communities. So I want to drill down on that. I mean, which is kudos. I mean, that's really impressive.
Thank you.
I want to drill down on some of the things that you do to make your communities real communities. Can you speak to some of the things you do that people may or may not know?
Well, number one, you got to have an active owner. I mean, the property is a representation of you. It's your reputation. Right? Which means reputation management. And the way my property looks is how I feel, my standards, my quality, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable to me. So I think it starts at the top and then it flows its way down. As I mentioned before, we use a company called J. Turner Research, big national company. They're the ones that monitor every single reviews. They have what they're called their Aura rankings. They're, I forget what the O and the R stands for, but their assessment of all your reviews, and they monitor Facebook, Google, apartment ratings, every platform. And then again, I get a daily summary every single night of where that's at. If you're paying attention, you're going to do something. It only makes sense by the end of the year, some of your properties are going to do really well. Our best properties ranked 39th in the country in reputation management out of 101,000 communities surveyed. In fact, that property just won the National Property of the Year at the National Apartment Association Award because we're paying attention.
So I want to, sorry, I was asking the question a little differently. What do you do at the community level? What do you do at the, your on-site team? What do they do to make sure, before it ever gets to an online review, what do they do to create raving fans out of your residents?
It's all about the introduction and when they move in. It's all about that. The first impressions are everything. So how is that unit presented to them? Was the make ready proper, right? Was there spillage of paint? Did you not take care of pest control and they saw a roach the first day they moved in? I mean, you've got to take care of it, but they have to have a voice. Give them a voice. So that interaction between the manager or the assistant manager and the resident is so key. Right. And we we're very good about making sure that our people walk that unit because, again, impressions are everything. Then once they live there, what is it like to be there? Well, we spend a lot of money on amenities to make sure that the amenities in the property are what's required. All of our properties have a pet park. All of our properties have a pavilion and an outdoor barbecue grill area. Some of our properties have other amenities, right? But we want to create as many community building events
That's what I was looking for. Yeah, that's what I was looking for as well. Talk about some of the things you do to build a sense of community.
Sure. I think when you come with the understanding that this is their life, and they choose to share their life at your community. So that means they're going to go through birthdays, weddings, births. You will always be part of their life 5-10 years from now. And if you look at where housing is going, especially here in Houston, more than half the population rents, right? And that number's getting bigger,
that
right?
Number's going to grow. Yeah.
It's going to grow. So trying to understand what people want. Well, they don't want to go to a laundry room. They want in-house washer and dryers.
Right.
So it's not like for the Class A's only. It's for your B's and C's. They want that community. Now we're talking about smart features and smart locks and all these kind of things at the next level. But give some examples.
Give some examples of some of the smart features that you're either evaluating or already implementing.
Right. So right now at our two of our newest sites, right? These are Class A's, so the budget is there, right?
Right.
The ability to take, just like you're able to take your keys and open your door, your car door, what is the ability to open your front door?
And how cool would that
PDA. Be? Okay. Yeah, exactly. Or if your mom's going to come visit your apartment and she's staying for the weekend, right? You can send her the password code. And she can use it to plug in Nest thermostats, the ability to pay. Well, right now, all of our properties have the ability to pay rent online through voice. So you can go to, hey, Alexa, pay my rent, right? It's just the ability. Anything that saves time is where we want to be.
Very cool. Have you installed the FedEx boxes in all your communities so your management team doesn't have to deal with all the packages coming in?
That has not happened yet. I've visited communities where I see that, and it's actually pretty cool. I've actually surveyed my communities, and reason, and I don't understand why we're against the norm, but they're saying packages isn't an issue yet, which I'm shocked. But I've been at other communities where, like here where I live, they don't have that, but they deliver the package to my front door every day.
Oh, right? To your front door. Yeah.
To my front door.
In a lot of the communities, of course, it ends up in the leasing office, and I've seen stacks and stacks of this stuff. So I was just curious. Okay. Yeah. So also,
Ron?
Yes.
No, I'm sorry. I lost connection for a second.
Oh, okay. No problem. We talked before we started recording about one of the secrets to your success is the size of your communities. Can you speak to that a little bit as well?
It's really interesting. When I was early on in my career, I thought the smaller count, the better. Because if I could eliminate any middleman between the property manager and the resident, that was good. Because if I have an issue, I go straight to you. You probably want to, if I've hired right, you want to fix my issue. Mm-hmm. I saw that at our larger sites when I was a little earlier in my career, had the occupancy issues, had the turnover issues, right? Because there's too many people in the loop between the resident and the manager. As I've evolved, and those properties were really good, right? Those early ones are 100 unit, 150 unit, 118 units. But because I was putting my own personal effort into it every single day, I was basically another person paying attention. As you grow, you can't do that. You can't have 20 properties and be at every single site. So you need to have the budget to be able to hire somebody closer to your standards, closer to what your expectations are. That doesn't happen when you have 50 units or 100 units. You need to have 300 units. And even at 300 units, if you got Class C rent, right, you're gonna get a Class C manager at 300 units. But Class B rent, you get another $100, $200 on the average rent number. Class A rent, you can go get you a $80, $90, $100,000 a year type person who has higher standards, right? So units is very important. Bigger is better. And I didn't believe that, but it is better. I recognize that because it's not just staff. You have a bigger marketing budget. If you want to do $1,000 ad on Facebook or wherever, $1,000 on a 100-unit property is a bigger percentage than it is on a 300-unit property, right? So it gives you more options.
Sure. Good. Let me ask you this. I like to ask this question, especially someone of your stature. If you could go back and give your 20-year-old self some advice about this business, with what you know, what might you tell your 20-year-old self?
Go a little faster. Go a little faster. My first year, I bought one deal a year for the first 3 or 4 years of our growth. It wasn't until later that I recognized, man, we're really good at this. Man, we have these achievements, and I can not only be doing better myself, but better for my team, because obviously as we grow, they're going to grow. I can pay them more. We can we can grow together. And I think that would be the biggest one is that, but why? Why didn't I grow? Because I wasn't confident in myself. Yeah. I think you need to find that confidence, and I think you need to jump into the pool and learn it. And once you figure out, push yourself, right? Because it's only getting more expensive. We talked about it, $24,000 a door. I mean,
that's not. That's not those days are gone. Will they come back? Very possibly, but they're gone for now. So let me ask you this: throughout your career, people think that it's all roses the whole way. Talk about a time you got your butt kicked, like a doozy. Talk about one of those.
Well, you know what? The biggest your successes in the future come from your mistakes in the past.
Yeah, your setbacks.
So it's okay to have those setbacks, just to learn from it. This goes back to what I learned with the bigger is better. We did not have any Class A properties at this point. This is 2015, oil was crazy in Houston. Oil was like, near $100 a barrel. Jobs are left and right. We were growing at a pace of 110,000 jobs a year for the past 3 years. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to kick it up a notch. I'm going to go buy a Class A. I'm going to see if our business model will work in the Class A. And I've learned that it truly doesn't. You got to adjust the model differently. But that B and C model doesn't work in the Class A because there's too much turnover. But at that time, there was so much new construction going on in Houston. I limped in with a 51-unit deal. And I was in downtown, midtown area, going up against 400-unit, 500-unit communities that have theater rooms, spa-like amenities, and I'm like, you know what? It's okay. I'm going to be the low-cost provider. Their rents are $1,800 to $2,000. I'm at $1,200, $1,300. It's okay. I'll manage this like I have. It's only 51 units, so I'll limit my exposure. It was over 100. I think it was 118,000 a door at that time. At that time, the most expensive property I had was maybe 60 a door. So it was a big jump.
It was a stretch, yeah.
It was a stretch. Right. And what happened was the market tanked. Oh. And in underwriting was 100. The day we closed at 60. By Christmas of that year, oil was $30 a barrel. With jobs, right. And so as you have all this construction going on, everybody is trying to lease up. Everybody discounting concession, and you just eat everybody below you. And I got caught in a situation where I didn't have enough units to be able to have enough options. But again, necessity is the mother of invention. That property was our very first website. This is back in, I'm trying to think, 2015, I think it's when 2015. I learned websites. I learned SEO. I learned Facebook sponsored ads. I learned reputation management. That was the first property we ever had that ranked in the top 1%. Why? Because we had to. We had necessity. No choice. We had to learn all that. We had to be top ranked among these Class A's so we can try to get any kind of attention and demand. And, that was not the big ROI winner in our portfolio. In fact, I think we only made like maybe 9% annualized 7% per year for 4 years of ownership, 3 years of ownership. But I learned all the lessons that we take for granted today that I took back to the rest of my portfolio, because as times changed, websites, sponsored ads, reputation management mean everything on the B and C market, where they didn't mean anything 5 years ago. Right. So those are the best lessons that I learned. I mean, you have to get kicked in the face once in a while to really learn that. Absolutely. And then you prevent it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's interesting. Some of the most successful companies on the planet are the ones that started in the contraction because for that very reason, because they have to be scrappy. They have to think outside the box and innovate and all these things that the companies that are sitting on their laurels don't. So it's an interesting parallel.
Well, to land on that, you've heard that Blockbuster. I mean, Gary talks about that all the time. Blockbuster got killed. Netflix is actually in their office trying to sell themselves.
I know. They could have bought Netflix. Yeah, they could have bought Netflix. It's astounding.
But you're not willing to evolve. You're not willing to see where the market's going. And I think anything that saves time saves money, and that's where the value's at.
Yeah, sure. Like taxi medallions.
There you go. Those are gone.
Right. So let me ask you this. What do you think is the most challenging part of your role in your company?
The quality control. Because as you grow, you expect those standards that you had from way back when. You expect when you were making, 20-25% returns annually for your investors. Right. And as pricing goes up and rent follows it somewhat, you've got to reassess your expectations. Those early investors are so excited. They want to do another deal with you.
And they expect that. They expect that to continue.
Right.
That's a big problem. Yeah.
That puts a lot of pressure on you right now, and what's going on too here in Houston. And this is going to be, very, I don't know, specific in your market, but property taxes are out of control right now within the city of Houston, primarily because, you've got a change of administration. You've had Hurricane Harvey that hit us real bad, and they want to do a lot of infrastructure. So in 1 year, we can see a property tax increase of 70%, and they act like nothing. And if you're already paying $100,000 a year, and now you're asked to pay where's that $70,000 going to come from?
Right.
So you have to fight it, protest it. You get happy if you only get 15% because you were facing the barrel of 70%. It's the issues that I can't control. I can control. I learned this from my father, who is a master team builder and business guy. You can control what's in the four walls of your business, but I can't control what happens outside the four walls of my business, right? So make this as strong as it can possibly be so that when these other issues attack you from the outside, you can better withstand it.
Love it. Love it. So who inspires you, brother? Is there any, or what inspires you? Do you have any favorite quotes? Tell me what.
I think my favorite quote is, if you don't like your situation, do something about it. It's as simple as that,
Pretty straightforward.
Gary's quote, it's always been you versus you. And when you realize that, you'll make change. Don't overqualify. Don't give too much emphasis to somebody else's opinion of you or what you're doing. Just follow your heart and do what you want. More people aren't successful today because they listen to other people instead of just following what makes sense to them. And I think once you can learn to eliminate the noise, you get better. But I think change is everything. Change is going to come, right? I've heard very few people in my life, in my exposure, that when change occurred, it didn't get better for them, right? So if you don't like your situation, then change your situation.
Change it. Thank you. Let me ask you just a couple last follow-up questions here. What did you have to give up to get to the success that you have now? You have a family, kids?
Ooh, I do have family and kids. I'm very, very, I've gone through a divorce. I hate to say that that's what I gave up, but, there are goals that you want to hit in your life, and again, it's you versus you, but my children are the centerpiece of my life. Soccer is a huge part. Club soccer is a big part of what we do. They're 13 and 11. I like to incorporate my kids in my daily business, so I do put a lot of memes and micro out. My kids are in that with me. We have lessons in the car. We talk about stuff. So my little one knows all about water conservation and stuff like that, cool. And the importance of how money it is, the importance of a low flow toilet and what have you, and he gets it. Cool. That's a big part of my life. I think you have to get rid of old notions of success and understand that things are changing and what is it really about in the future and how important it is and what's the priority in your life. So I think that's important. I think you're changing throughout your life, and what's important to you 10 years ago isn't as important 5 years ago, isn't as important as right now, so you've got to figure out what you want in life and then go after it. Yep.
Well, listen, I really appreciate you coming on, my friend, and I'm looking forward to getting to know you better. Sure. And, very impressive what you've done with your company, Rockstar Capital, and we'll put the information in the show notes. And thanks for your time, brother.
Thank you very much. Again, it was an honor to be on your show. It's awesome to meet you.
Thank you. Hey, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my channel. And if you listen to podcasts, join me on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to those podcasts. Just search for Lifetime Cash Flow through real estate investing.